Welcome to you all. Thank you very much for coming here in this big number of people. After lunch, of course, don't fall asleep. Keep on your spirit. At least we will do that for you also. Today, or this afternoon, our session is about team foundation build and NAV development. A couple of years ago, I was here to talk about TFS using for ALM purposes. This is a step further. Some of you might have joined the workshop of Kamil. Who did? No one? Oh, some. Yeah. I was only 15, so that's a comparable, a small group. And some of you followed my workshop. Yeah. Okay. So for those who weren't, the most of you, this is for sure a next step. We will discuss some on the beginning parts of it, but let's first take this start here and introduce ourselves. We call ourselves sometimes the bodybuilders. Today we call ourselves the team builders. Myself, Luc van Vugt, you might know me from some of the blogs. And in this context, in our team, I'm Longshanks. You'll see why. And be sure, I'm not Mr. Mibuso. So don't send mails for Mr. Mibuso to me, but to him. Next.
Yeah, my name is Kamil Sacek. I'm from Czech Republic and I'm MVP since 2005. It means it will be more than 10 years. And working with NAV since 2001. And my latest focus is on building a NAV database on TFS.
And my name is Soren Klemmensen. I'm an MVP from Canada. I've been an MVP for a couple of years now, and I'm really excited about presenting to this many people.
So, let's go, guys.
It's true.
It's on your stage.
The other way, sorry. This will be the agenda for today. I'll give you a short, well, a relatively short introduction to source code management to set the base, because that is the part where Kamil will step in onto, you could say, the build part, actually the core part of today's session. You need that. And, well, let's get to that at the end. It's Soren's part of the show to make a summary, and we'll have a question and answering at the end. So write down your questions, and we'll hope we'll have enough time left to give you serious attention, to give you the room to pose your questions. So let's go to source code management. Why should you use source code management? Why do we use it? There are a couple of reasons for that. And to be honest, from my perspective, but having been teaching TFS-related workshops, I know there are a lot of other perspectives. But there are a couple of reasons why I don't use, let's say, traditional NAV development, having a centralized database, and that's where everything happens. So one of the reasons is, why was a change done? Of course, you can track it with any other change, other system. So you could say basically the requirement. We want to record that in a system like Team Foundation server. It could be another one. What does that change actually contain? So it's not only the why, but it's what has it been? What is the code change as such? So who did it? You could say it could feel like a big brother, and in a way, yeah, you could use it like that, but it's more the other way around. If you know who did it and what he or she did and something went wrong, you can learn from that. You can learn from each other also, having the possibility to see, hey, somebody else did it like that, why? Where did the change actually go? So you can track where a change, let's say, the flow of the change is going. So you change somewhere in your system, your whole structure of code, and you can bring it somewhere else. And last but not least in this list is what changes have been applied. So history-wise, you can always refer back to the change you've done a year ago or whatever. So you have a full-blown, let's say, a register of these kind of matters in your system. That's the main reason, you could say, why we started to use this kind of system. So why should you use it now, or why should now be a point to start using it, considering it? investigating it. Of course, NAV as such is moving forward, and a lot of things are changing. Microsoft is in that sense, sometimes we feel like that, imposing things up on us. You have to go to the cloud, you have to, or you could say the other way around, you get the chance to go to the cloud. However, nevertheless, how you look at it, it determines part of your development practices. So, can you deliver your changes or your software as such on time with the speed, for example, of the cumulative updates we get? Are you able to get your add-on, your solution upgraded after the last cumulative update before the next one? With the managed service, or you could say the whole Azure paradigm or the cloud paradigm, are you able to provide your solution to your customers on a regular basis? And there is more to manage than NAV, or NAV source as such. We have PowerShell, which we have seen a lot. That's also source code. And how do you manage that? How do you version that? How do you version your code for your client engines? From, let's say, a .NET perspective, it's an everyday work using Visual Studio and Team Foundation Server together. From, let's say, the standard NAV practices most of us are used to, it's not that common, but okay, how do you bring these two together on a versioning system? The same applies in general for .NET components. So, let's say this is a bit why you should be doing it. I'm using this schema to tell you more or less a bit how the system works. Kamil will show a short demo on this part also, and later, of course, use it when showing and talking about the build system. So the source code management is all about a central code repository, which is put here on the right side. In our setup, we're both, or all three of us, using Team Foundation Server as a layer up above it. Kamil and I, in our situation, we are using Team Foundation Server or Team Foundation Version Control System as our code repository. In the case of Kamil, he is using Git. Microsoft has built a connector from Team Foundation Server into Git. You could also say this story applies to another kind of system like Perforce, or, well, many others probably, but not that well known maybe to me. It's all about having a central repository where your code is, and that's the truth. It's not a central database, development database, but it's the code repository. That's where everybody hooks into, that's where everybody syncs to. So there is a bit of challenge, of course. This central repository you will copy with this update action to a local workspace, and local could mean really on your laptop as a developer or on a virtual machine. So you draw a copy from that, and as that is a local file system, it's not yet your database, so your development environment, you could say. So we need to sync these two together, so get the data, the object files being text files into our development database, and there is what we do the work. And if we finish with the work, we update our workspace, and from our workspace we will update, check in the code. That's the wording for Team Foundation Server, checking in or pushing your things into the central repository as Git calls it. So this is actually the basis of the whole source code management and the basis of what Kamil will show with the build. You have a central repository and, let's say, workspaces where you copy files from the repository and start using them. This is what we call developer isolation. We share the fact that we want that. I know some others do think differently on that, but that's a personal or a company choice. This enables you to really develop in parallel without touching each other's code. So I can start developing something on Code Unit 18. Kamil can do something at the same time on his local copy, and later on the system, Team Foundation Server or Git, will help me to merge these things. But they're stored as two different versions. So I can propagate my change or Kamil's change separately. I can propagate them two together, so in the sense of releasing or bringing to another branch in the system. So, Kamil,
yeah,
a short demo.
Time for showing something live, not only the presentation here. Please switch. Yep.
Yes.
No.
No, the other way around?
Now, yep.
Okay.
Thanks. What you see, and what you again not see. Yeah,
again?
now it's okay. Let it be. Don't touch it. That's a graphical user interface for Git. It's a Git extension because there is many clients for Git on the market. You can select what suits you more. I selected this one because yeah, I think it's really simple to use and you can extend it. It's open source. It means I changed something to extend it as I need it. The main part is history of our databases, of our development. You can see there are different branches for different customers or our products with some comments for each commit which is inside. There is who made the change, when it was done. There are even the informations about how the build of this change was finished, if it's okay or not. We will talk about how we can manage that. And of course, I have some information about the specific commit, specific change, which is there. There is some comment on that. Even when I select some other change here, I have a link for the requirement on which it was based or created, for which requirement from customer, for example. I can see the difference. It means very simple way how to look at what my colleagues did in the database, which changes were done. I can see, of course, change of the header, and I see he added some actions and some variable. That's okay for me. I can review this change and maybe give him feedback that, sorry, that it is not okay, change this code, or yeah, that's nice solution for requirement. And of course, I can see the result of the build here if I need it. Sometimes, of course, something is threat, and I can blame the guy why you broken my builds there. Yeah, like I see, okay, there are some errors with importing objects and maybe renamed tables or something like that. That's the client we can use. And I will show you how we are using it. First thing is, I have some requirement, for example, on my TFS. I will go there. I'm using Visual Studio Online for that. I can look on my work, and I see that there is one user story that some finance departments want to block new item card when it is created until someone will fill the product posting groups. Some consultants take that, created 2 tasks. First, to block the item when it is created, and second task is don't allow to unblock it until the posting groups are filled in. I'm a developer, I take that tasks, and I will go to the Git extensions, and I see, okay, I need to work on that. I, for example, want to start with my database because I want to develop it locally on my machine. I don't have central database for development. I don't have the database on my notebook now. Okay, I just click Create Local, and yeah, that's what sometimes happen. each time when you prepare something and you don't restart your computer, that's the case, and something will stuck somewhere. Just try it again. Now we are, yep.
Seems that these 2 days in Antwerp doing something always goes wrong.
Just waiting for TFS to return the results. Now, I just enter where I want to create my database, and the script will not do because I'm not an administrator. Yeah? I need first to be an administrator. Again, open that, go there, wait for the TFS to return my results of the builds, because we are online. Speed of internet is not so high as we want. And after the results will be there, I hope last time try to create my database locally. And now, yeah, it's starting to work. First, it will restore some database from some backup. Then it will create service tier for this database, import license into that, update my objects on the database to be on same level as the repository, with same objects inside the database. And after that's finished, I can start develop. It should take around 2 minutes. Of course, adding me as a super user into the database because I want to test it. Yeah, the user is already there. There are errors, but we can ignore that. Yeah, doesn't matter. I'm still there as a user. Now it is importing some FOB file with the test suite, for example, first, to have the test suite there, going through all the objects in the repository, comparing with objects inside the table of the database, objects table, and importing only what's different. Of course, after we compare the objects, we need another go and check if there is something deleted in the objects. Because, yeah, I'm comparing just the existing, but I need to find out what was deleted in my repository, for example, to delete it into the database. Yeah, but still we are now up to date, and I can start to develop. I just click C site. It will find the correct version of NAV on my system and run the development environment and connect me to the database, to the correct database. I can really forget where my database is and how it's named. Doesn't care about that. Now I start to develop. Of course, I will create some new code in it. I will use, of course, new features of 2016. First, I need to set the blocked field on creation of the item. It means I will create function block item on insert. It will be subscriber on table 27. I think everybody knows that what's table 27 here, yeah. Do you know the number of the bicycle? Okay, on before insert, yes, that's all. And to not write the code, I prepare the code already here. I will just push the code here. That's all. First, I will check that I am not working with temporary table, because events are called even for the temporary tables. Don't forget about that. It's dangerous. And then I will just set the field blocked at true. After, when somebody creates the item, it will be blocked. And then I will create another function check posting groups on unblock. Of course, it will be again subscriber to table 27, this time on after validate event of the field blocked. I will put second part of my code here. Again, checking if I am working with a temporary table or not. Checking if I'm going from blocked to unblocked. And when yes, then I will test my two posting groups fields if they are filled in. If not, there will be error, and the user can't change the blocked field here.
While you're doing this, Kamil, you're only working at this moment in the NAV database, eh?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm working only on NAV database, nothing else. I created or processed two tasks I have assigned, and just save the objects. On my local machine, it means I don't care if somebody else is working on the same object. This time I created my own, but yeah, if I change some existing, I don't care about that right now. I'm done. I just close my client and go back to the Git extension client and say, okay, I want to synchronize NAV to my Git repository. It means I just click the button, NAV to Git. And again, there is some PowerShell script which goes through the object table, compare everything with the files on my local file system, and will export only the changed objects. And again, we'll check for deletion of the objects to handle if I something deleted in the database.
And this is stored locally, as you said?
It's still locally, yeah.
Right.
Working with my my database and my local file system. Yep. We have 30 minutes to 30 seconds to finish that. I think it will be quicker. Of course, now I could just manually export the objects. It will be much faster. But if I'm working and doing some more complex changes, yeah, I don't care which objects I changed. The system will find it itself.
Yeah, and there's an additional thing to that, because in NAV, if you, this is just a simple code unit, but what happens if you change the name of a field?
Yeah.
There are more objects influenced.
The problem, yeah, the problem is if you are renaming something, you touch one object, but code changed in many other objects. You need to have this in your mind. In this case, I can click not NAV to Git, but NAV to Git all, and it will take all the objects, export them, split the big text file to small one, and overwrite all the objects. It means Git will find what was changed, everything for me, and will automatically offer me committing these changes.
You mean Git will find out that there are only 5 objects influenced or affected?
Because I overwrite all the files,
and
he knows what's changed from last commit, and
cool.
will offer only that. We are finished. Only one code unit was exported.
I was just going to say, you just have, the only thing you've got to be careful about that is if you're doing deletions at the same time as you're doing renames, because the deletion will not be picked up if you do an all.
Yeah. The process will check the deletion after that too.
Oh, you have built that in? Okay. Just want to make sure.
I'm thinking about that. Yeah.
He's called Keen.
That's true.
And now what we can see that on the commit button I have number 1. It means one object was changed. It's new object. Okay. I will transfer it. First time seeing this dialog for you, I will describe what we can see here. The top left part is a list of changed files. Yep. This one. The part under that, it's what I want to commit to the Git. Right side is all the changes which are inside the selected file. Here we have description of the commit. I am using some template. I will override the template in a while. And then I have the commit button to commit this change to my local repository, or I can even directly push it to the server.
So the difference between commit and push, that is, commit just puts it into your local repository on your machine,
Yep.
while push pushes it up to the central repository.
Yeah, exactly. But now I can see that I have two tasks here I finished by this change. Number 35 and number 36. I don't want to have them in one commit, because I want to link one commit to one task and second commit to second task. Git allows me to do that. I will just select part of this change, this second function, and I will say, I don't want to commit that, and I say unstage. And now we can see into my commit will go only this part, this object with one function, and still in my directory is change of this object prepared for committing.
You lost one begin.
Sorry?
You lost one begin in your other file.
Oh, yeah. And again, I will just select this part and unstage. Now it should be correct. Yep.
Kamil, if I'm right, if I understand right, you want to split these two, although they are very small, and it's of
Yep.
course like a stupid example in a way, but you want to have them as separate features stored in your
Yep.
system. So like I said before, that you can decide whether you release the one or the two,
Yep.
or both of them.
Yeah, exactly. And to see, okay, for this task I did this change, and for this task I did this change,
Yeah.
because some relations there.
And that also becomes important at a later point. So this is just standard source code control or management. And very often, if you have multiple tasks, you check them in one. What if the customer then asks at a later point, can you give me task that and that? I want that promoted, but I don't want this one promoted because that's not good yet. So if you don't do the check-in, you don't do the check-in separate, it becomes a lot harder to manage what you did deliver to the customer and what you build on at a later point.
I just, between that, committed my first change. I will commit my second change. Now I have only second function inside it, and I'm using in the commit a hash and number of the work item on the TFS. Commit that, and now you can see in my history I have two commits here, number 35, number 36, and I can see the difference here, of course, for each of them, and I'm still working locally, yeah. But my development branch, which is used for putting finished development to separate what is finished and what's on my local machine just in progress, I need to merge it there. I will switch to this branch. Okay, now I'm in this branch and say, okay, merge into that this change which I made here.
So before you do that, Kamil, can you just try and explain what the train wreck over there on the left side is?
Yeah, this is very nice feature of Git that's showing you the tree of your history. If you have some version of something, you are continuing in this way, doing some change, and then you go back and create another change here. You split the tree. And you can build on this and split and split and split, or join and merge them back. Yeah, that's all about splitting and merging together different versions. And I click only merge into current. I have some setup here, doesn't matter. I will just merge. And everything is automatically merged because there is no conflict. Yeah. Yep. And now I just only push all the changes to my server. And I'm finished with this demo.
So, no.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's the source management part, in the sense of how do you put your source in the system. Of course, like you saw, part of this setup has been automated, and in that sense, it becomes part of your everyday habit, everyday work. Let's say, apart from the list, what we would like to register in the system in general, you could say, what are the benefits of the system? That's the way we experience it. Is first of all, of course, is a matter of securing your code. Whatever happens, you have a centralized database. With Git, you could have it more distributed before you put it in a centralized database. With TFS, the setup is, I'll get to that in another slide also, TFS is a matter of centralization. You set up the structure there and everybody hooks into that. With Git, you could start up, distribute it, separate it from each other, and decide later that you merge everything into one centralized branch. But nevertheless, you secure your code there. Apart from the fact, if you would say, I want everything to be the truth, as a truth in a centralized system, and from that we build our databases, or we have a centralized NAV database and we use that repository to make a kind of copy of it, both has a purpose to secure the code. One of the things is that you have history at hand. I know quite some partners who have built something up on SQL Server triggers, so when changing something in the object table, that you create a copy in another table, etc. That's also for history wise. But systems like TFS already have that in it. You don't need to take care of it or maintain that. And you have a lot of possibilities to easy compare and look longer histories, etc. One of the things I surely do, I know Soren and Kamil also strive for that, is what you release, or let's say the other way, what you build, either a bug fix or a feature, you put it in one change set. That's the goal. So you have that package, you could call that the Delta file, which you could put wherever you want in your system, or when you want to go and release it. One other thing is automatically part of the system, and is that you can easily roll back. You have committed and pushed a change, or as you call it on TFS, you have checked it in, and then you find out this was wrong. You can then easily roll back that whole change set and well, get back to where you were. Another thing is, through this, which is not, let's say, a deliberate thing of the way we work here, is that we have text files going outside of the system, is that you have a better overview on the code. My experience is that I have a better understanding of the code we have in our company. While if you sit only in a NAV database, it's like opening one window and then you see only half of it. I'm often having the role of a merge master, I have every code almost in my view. So next to that, the system also supports the fact that you ask each other to do code reviews. So code improvement is a benefit of using a system like this. It makes it easier. I don't say you can't do it differently, but it helps you a lot. I already mentioned TFS and Git, and Kamil is using Git. Both are used by many, so if you build your system yourself, of course, you're free to do that, but you maintain it. TFS and Git, you can profit from experience and new requirements brought in by many others. And there is a lot of tooling around it also available. Both systems are APIs, so what you want to automate and which is things which are not standard available, you can do yourself. Okay, well, it's not rocket science in the sense of totally new. It's not a geek kind of thing with advanced PowerShell as such. You can do it. The system is simple. But, well, I would see it's like a friendship. You cannot do without it. I mean, I tell in my workshops, every day I start with working with TFS, I open up Visual Studio and there's always, and it's not, yeah, you won't see it, but internally there's always a smile on my face. I'm, well, very happy with it. A last part, on, let's say, the source code management, and then when you really, well, Kamil showed you actually already a part of the build thing, but then we go into the details of the build. Put Git and Team Foundation version control next to each other. What are the differences? Why should you choose it? Well, first of all, as I mentioned, TFS is a fully centralized system. You have to build up your structure there, and everybody, let's say, hooks into that. It's not like that you build up something locally and then you can easily hook into the centralized system. No, you can by copy and paste, but you have always built up the system centrally. In my situation, working mainly as an end user, we have one product, we have one group working on it. On the other hand, if you have a team working with different kind of projects which might be related, you don't know at first, or you expect them to be somehow related later, you can start with Git a bit more easier in that sense that you can start locally and then later on decide to combine these two. Yeah? Of course, both have history at hand. That's one of the main parts, which is an added value to the whole system. Branches is a thing, we will not discuss it specifically here. I use it in my workshop, but it's a very powerful thing of saying, okay, this is our product and we need to do something now. Probably mostly building a feature. So let's take a branch of that and start working there. Both systems help you to do that. With Git, you have more, let's say, unrestricted situation. Everybody could do things locally and then later decide to put it in the system. In TFS, it means you have to make a branch in the system. It's there. Start doing your work, but you can always decide, in both cases, by the way, to delete it. And work finished, get rid of it. As TFS is very close to Visual Studio, it's highly integrated, so anything you do from a .NET perspective is, let's say, fully linked to TFS. With Git, there is a partial support on TFS. If you want to use clients, so you have Visual Studio for your source code management. With Git, you have a couple of other possibilities also.
I will only add one thing. Microsoft is now really trying to catch up with the Git integration to Visual Studio. It means you really, with each update, could expect more and more features for Git inside the Visual Studio itself. It means really there will be changes, and you can really see them in Visual Studio 2015 already going, and they will be adding each update new and new features there. It means it's just about now, but in the future it will be on same level.
Yeah, I think I think one of the reasons Luke and I really love TFVS is because we're old.
and we're from Microsoft.
I do know that Git is old too. Yeah.
We used to be. Of course, in the end, it's what fits you best. Yeah. And these are two examples. I mentioned POWERSHELL also as a source code management system, which is a very neat one too, but it's up to you. We're just mentioning it here. Feel free to ask us if later on you think we need some more information. It's not the purpose of this session to really go into that part.
And maybe it's not only about what fits you, but maybe what fits your company, because maybe you have different parts of your company working with C# code or another code, and they are already using some system.
True.
Yep. Why to use new one? Yep.
Okay. Now we're really into the build part.
Yeah.
Lights out.
The build part, which is the main focus of this session. For this, we first need to say something about the architecture of TFS. One question: who from you is using TFS now? Yeah, a bunch of people. Who already heard about TFS? Yeah, thanks. Who is using TFS only for work item, for ALM part, not source code? Only managing work items there. Nobody. Really? Look.
There's one over here. There's
I
one over
use
here.
all.
Yeah, your workshop is
Yeah.
have
There were
zero
only
impact
50
on
There
your
were only
people.
15 people there.
Okay, first the architecture. You need to have TFS server first. It could be online, as I am using during the demo, but you can use on-prem TFS server if you want. Doesn't matter. It's on you if you want to keep it and manage it or not. Then TFS server is using some SQL database to store the data. During installation, you can use SQL Express, or you can use your own full version of SQL you already have somewhere. Then we need some client to access the TFS to, for example, push the changes or changes of the source code there, or change the templates we are using during the builds. TFS have own web portal which you can use to access the work items, the history of the objects, history of the builds, or all these kinds of things could be done through TFS web portal. And of course, it's more and more extended with new features to plan your work and so on. Then there are two additional things to connect TFS to project server or SharePoint. Of course, we will not talk about that because it's really out of focus of this session. But last part is build controller, which is managing some build agents. And we will focus on these parts. We will use TFS server, we will use some web portal, of course, short time we will use some client, the Visual Studio or Git extension, and we will talk about the build agents or what they are really doing. Okay, how it works. We already saw that. It's a variant of what already Luke showed us. It's the central repository, central Git repository in my case. I have some pull action to download it to my local system, work with it, update the local repository, and then push to the server. Yep.
So what?
That's the development isolation.
Yeah, this developer isolation.
Yeah.
Is there an option to do this with, let's say, I'm using it like that, but like I said, there are many of us who still or who wants to continue working with a centralized developer database.
I would think about that. I see Eric, for example, here. He's using a centralized database for development. Yeah, we can use that for centralized development too.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Just by accident, I have prepared that for you. If you have centralized database development and you already have some version control system which produce text files somewhere, it's not a problem to push these text files to the Git repository, and you have the centralized Git repository and you can work with it, as in case when you are using the development isolation. Doesn't matter from where the files are coming. Yeah? And over this centralized repository, we can create new process which take the objects from there or some other data, will build the database for you, will run, for example, some tests or do something else, and then return back some results which are connected to the central repository.
So we're now going to focus on the upper right side, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. But first, we can do, of course, the same for TFVC.
Yeah, okay.
Not only for the Git, you can see now the same picture for TFVC. When I will go back, you can see that nothing really changed there. It's only about the naming. It's still the same process, same building blocks. And we will really focus on this part now.
All right.
But before we go to some demos and more detailed things, question is, what does it mean to build? Yeah. What does it mean to build an NAV database? Because we need to think about that. Sorry? Compiling. What? Where? Yeah? It's only the middle part of that. Because to be able to compile, you need to have the objects in the database. You need to create a database somewhere. And for example, to import something and compile, you need the service tier even there. And license. And maybe external libraries. Add-ins. Yeah, it's a bunch of things you need for that. Okay, there are the steps as I see them. You need first to prepare your environment. If it means create virtual machine, install a NAV there, or install something else there, it's on you. I will take it in a simple way. I will only create the database from some backup. I already have some secret somewhere. I have already a NAV on the machine. I am not building from scratch. I will create the database first. Then I will create server instance for this database. I will install external components on this server to be sure that I have all the DLLs there in correct version. And I will import my NAV license to be able to do all the things I need. Second step is to update the objects inside the database, because the backup is maybe old. Maybe there are no all the cumulative updates because I made the backup yesterday and today there is new cumulative update, and this cumulative update was already downloaded by your automatic script to download that from the blog article, and it's already somewhere stored, and maybe your product is already updated. During the update, we first import some FOB file. Question is why I'm importing first the FOB file. You know that. Everybody hit that, yeah. Yeah, exactly. New fields, new objects. Yeah, maybe the backup is really old and new cumulative updates are adding fields, adding objects. You can't create them by text file. Then I imported all the text files inside my repository to this database and compiled these objects.
The all import of text files.
Yep.
I think there are some exceptions you cannot import. How do you handle that?
By importing the FOB file.
Okay, but then you exclude them from the import, like a menu suite?
Yeah. Of course, it's just about the process. If you hit some exception, yeah, I can't import menu suite 1010, then you need to skip it.
All right.
Yeah. And you need to import it through the FOB file. Next step is to test the database, because why we are doing that, we want to know that the database is okay, it's working, everything is inside working as I want. I didn't break any standard functionality. Now we have 15,000 automatic tests in test suite. You can run them. Okay, it will take 4 hours to finish. You don't want to run them manually on your machine. Yeah? Use the build for that. It means, yeah, but first, which test to run? Maybe it's part of your build process to find, okay, I changed these objects, I need only run these and these tests because they are affected by these changes. Then we run the tests, and we are going to the next step. We need to produce some output. And again, it depends on what is output of the build for you. In my case, it's test results. I want to see the test results, of course, somewhere, and see the history of that. Then I need to create FOB file, because maybe I will just take the FOB file and import it to the customer database, and customer is updated. Maybe. And then maybe we can create and publish nafix file, because we are creating extension. I don't need to do that manually. The system knows from where I am going, where I am now, can create the deltas, create the extension, and just provide me, as a result, the extension nafx file. And then, if you want, optional step to deploy this output somewhere for example, to update some database somewhere else and so on.
So now we have a kind of recipe, or the ingredients of the recipe.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's the steps we need to follow to cook our build.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you cook your build, one of the things that is always surprising that is it takes so long because I've got to import all the objects. Are you importing all the objects every time? Or are you importing just some of them? So the differences here?
Sometimes I don't have enough time to cook a whole food. Sometimes I'm using some pre-prepared things. And of course, I can only import changed text files, changed objects, and compile only them when I need only quick overview of if all is okay. I expect that when I'm releasing some new version, then I'm importing all and compiling all only.
Yes. So that's always a good idea when you're building or you are ready to deliver. That is to do the entire build from scratch. Mom's cooking always tastes better. I mean, but when you do the entire build from scratch, you catch things you wouldn't catch otherwise. When you're just importing changes, I mean, it's microwave food, right? You do it fast. It doesn't import all objects. There might be somebody has done something that you didn't catch. There was a field name change. There was something that changed that you didn't catch. So when you do builds and you do releases, it's always best practice to do an entire build from scratch from the standard database. Of course, you need to import whatever add-ons you have that you don't have permissions to insert, but do it from scratch.
Yeah. Now we have the process, but what about what we need to build it at all? What we need to build? First, we need someone who will build that. In our case, it's TFS build server. I'm naming it Bob, because everybody knows who is Bob then, because Bob is building for us. And he needs some tools. First, PowerShell scripts. Ask Eric, he will help you with the scripts if you need.
Bob?
Yeah. Of course, we need some build template which is describing this process we already saw on the PowerShell, PowerPoint, PowerShell, Power BI, Power everything. Yeah, okay. PowerPoint. Then we need build definition, which is instance of the template. It's specific build setup for some specific database. Then we need parameters for this build, because he needs to know what to build, where to build, when to build, and so on. And then we need something which will trigger the build, which will start the build for us. Okay, about the PowerShell scripts. We need for each of these steps, we need PowerShell, because PowerShell is really doing the job for us. And where to take them? Because really developing it, it could take a long time. First, you can do it yourself if you want, if you have time, if you have knowledge. Or you can use some which are already there. You can use one from my project on Codeplex. It is there already, I think, maybe around a year. Or you can use scripts which Eric already published, because they are all the steps you need. You can create a local environment or something like that. You can build the scripts from these functions there. And watch my blog, because I want to blog about how to create all the things, and all of you who attended my workshop, you already have the scripts. I will publish them on my blog in next few weeks. Okay, first something about the build template. What we have as an option to create a build template. First, there is version of build template which is done in XAML. XAML, it's XML format. It's used by Microsoft Workflow Foundation. It's based on the Windows Workflow Foundation. It has some activities creating complex workflow. You can have repeat, until, try, catch, if, then, else, and everything inside. And of course, there is no built or prepared PowerShell support in these activities. There are really limited support for PowerShell. Just run them through the command prompt, but you will not see all the results in your build then. Of course, the build agent for XAML template exists only for Windows, but it's not limit for us. We are still on the Windows only. In TFS 2015, there is a new build system which is named TF Build 2015. It is based on web and scripts. It means you are developing the template on a web portal of TFS. And you are just adding some scripts there which will be run on the agent. And the activities there are defining each step, and there is only linear execution of these steps. And there is native support for PowerShell. It means you can use your PowerShell, you will see all the outputs, errors, warning directly during the build without any other customization needed or something like that.
Which one should I choose?
Which to choose?
Yeah.
It depends on what you are expecting from the results. XAML is here for a long time, but it's more complex and harder to change. The TF Build 2015 is really easy to create and use, but it's too new and it's not connected to everything around. For example, some reporting is not using it, and for example, the Git extension is not connected to that. Don't see the results of this build, but it's question of the time, but it's really easy to use. If you are just starting and you want to something to use the TF Build 2015. If you want to have all the complexity, use the XAML.
But I think it seems to be clear that Microsoft is making the move. So the future will be the PowerShell, it will be TFS Build 2015. So if you're just starting out, use TFS Build 2015. If you've already been using it for a couple of years, you are on XAML right now, so you probably have some complexity that might not be available in the new one yet. So you can start moving it, but the reality is that that's the future anyway. TFS Build 2015.
Yeah,
so
exactly. And the TF Build 2015 even have the native support for GitHub repositories. It means you can build source code which is saved on GitHub, for example, and it has support for different platforms. But yeah, we don't care about that. How it looks like? Yeah, you can see here, it's the XAML template in Visual Studio. It's somehow visual programming when you just drag and drop the actions and connect them and set the properties here, or you have the TF build system with the different steps, creating, importing, running, exporting, publishing, until you are done. Just very short demo. Oh, sorry. Please, could you switch me? Number 6.
I guess I'm not allowed anymore.
No,
yeah.
Surely.
Number 6. Here we are in Visual Studio. There is the my XAML template, which is really long, and you can see all the steps here. I'm running some code units. I'm running compile, import, and so on. But still, it is just running some PowerShell script here. Yeah. You can see it's Visual Basic. You need again something to write the expressions. Now CIL code, C#, Visual Basic. Yeah. It's XAML definition, and now we have even the TF build definition. Yep. Not there. I will open that. Oh, sorry, wrong. And you don't need the Visual Studio to create these definitions, and they are just looking like that. Really different steps, different scripts here, and you have just some settings here, variables and so on you want. That's all what you need. It's really easy to start with that. That's the demo. About some build parameters we need for the build. We can select if we will have them in a template as a part of the definition of the build. They are defined by the template. They are configured when you are creating the build definition, or you can define them when you are queuing the build, when you are requesting build something for me. Or you can have the parameters saved in your files, which are part of the repository, for example, in some XML file, which I'm using on most of for the parameters, because when you want to change them, you just change them, save the change of the file, push it to the server, and the build will use them. There are the examples of the parameters which I'm using. Of course, the build server needs to know where is the SQL server, how named the SQL database, where is the backup, where is the FOB file, where is the license file to use, which version of NAV it should use, and all these kind of things you need to store and tell the build.
Kamil, these are typical parameters you've set into your template, eh?
Yeah.
Because this is specifically NAV, but there's a part, of course, which is, let's say, default TFS,
yeah,
where you, let's say, let the system create a new number for the build, eh? So every build has an identifier.
Yeah, of course, there is some standard parameter build name, which I'm using in the templates, and I don't need to touch them. I just use the result of this build name in my scripts to, for example, name the FOB file which I am producing.
Okay.
Yeah. Parameters demo, just really short again.
Yeah.
Here I have my parameters in XAML template, which test code unit, compare drop for the last build, the drop server, where is if I want to force import, it means I want to import everything or not. In XAML I need to add some metadata for each parameter. It means there is some metadata parameter. I can add my own parameter here, name it somehow, put it into some category, describe it, and set some additional parameters. That's what I need in the XAML template. When I go back to the TF 2015 build system, I have just variables here, which I can create. I will just name them, just put some default value, and that's all what I need. Because in my scripts, I will see them as environment variables. It means I can just directly access these variables in my scripts, and I'm done. That's all about the parameters, how to put them into your template. Then we need some build trigger, which could be manual. It means you must trigger the build to run. You need some button to push that. You can have continuous integration. It means it is building each commit, each change that you push to the server. It will take it, build it, and send you back the result. Or, yeah, for each commit and check-in. Or you have rolling builds. It means it will take all what was not built yet and will build it together. And after that, maybe after 1 hour, it will again take everything what was there and build it for that. Then we have a gate check-in. It's currently only for TFVC, but I can expect that it will be for Git there too. but it's hard to explain. I don't know how to explain. Maybe you shall not pass. Yeah, that's the explanation of this, because here you have your change, build process, and TFS server. And if you don't pass the build, you will not get to the server with your changes. That's a very good thing, how to prevent your product be broken by different changes of your developers. If it will not go through the build process correctly, it will not get into the product at all. And then we have scheduled nightly builds. For example, if you want each night run all the tests and see the result if everything is working on your product. Just look at that, how it looks in Visual Studio. Again, when I go to the part where I want to define new, sorry, this server is not accepted. I need another one. Yeah.
Did you notice the really nice name we have here for our online version?
You mean the MS NAV, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really taking some time here. But, yep, we are getting there. I want different one. I want the Git. I am here. I have builds here. And for example, if I go to the definition of this build, I have some triggers here, and manual continuous integration rolling builds. I can select after 60 minutes, maybe I want to take the batch. I can schedule my build as I want. And the same thing we can see on the web version. I can select continuous integration, batch or not, or I can schedule it for some time, or if I will not set anything, it will be the manual version of that. Yep. That's all about the triggers. Build demo. Yeah, we are going to look at the result of the build, because on the beginning I made some change, and now I want to see what was done in that.
We don't have a drum, with a roll.
Yeah.
You've been waiting for this now 50 minutes or whatever. This is what it's all about. We just some talking and chit-chatting around it.
First I will go to my Git extension client.
Actually, first we got to run the entire build, which will take the next 5 hours. So you have time?
No, I use the differential build only to build the new change here. I will refresh the view, wait for the results from the build server, and you can see that there is green, everything is okay. It takes 3.5 minutes to build the database for me. It means the database already existed, objects were there, it only updated the new object there, compile it, export the FOB file for me and everything. It means all is okay. I will go to my Visual Studio. First, I will look at the work items I had for this work. I can look here, and I see that this work item is associated with some commit I made. That's the first connection. I have work item, I have changes, it's connected together. Then I have associated some build with this work item. I can see that. There is my build. This work item is part of this build because there was some commit during the build which was built on my build server. Too much builds everywhere. Okay, now I will go to the builds on my TFS. I will look for my definition. it's this build I made 36 minutes ago, and the result is succeeded, run for 3-5 minutes. There were few commits connected to that because there was one merge and the 2 commits which were put into this merge. Yeah, I can see the commits here, no test results, and I have associated work items even here. I can click and look at what was built in this build. Yeah, and I can click everywhere and look, for example, which changes were made in this part, and I can see it was coded 50,000 and added this function here. Yeah.
So bearing in mind that slide I had with the why and the whatever, this is actually a next step to it, where you can, through the system, see we've built a new version and what is part of it, or what has led to that build.
Exactly.
Okay.
When I will go to another build I made few weeks ago, for example here, you can see that I have some warnings during the build, but it's just about waiting for the service to stop and start. But there is some error message that 71 tests were not past my build. It's why the build is partially succeeded only. It was okay, but not fully. All was imported, all was compiled, but the tests, there were some fails in the tests.
So now we can go hunting for whoever broke the build.
Yeah,
yes,
of course. I can hunt him because I know that it was this commit, and it must be part of this commit, the change. It means...
Oh, so it's you.
Yeah, of course. And this build is only for Czech NAV 2016, the release version, and I can see even the test results here. I just click, I see the numbers, how long it takes, but even I see the test results here for each of the tests in test suite. And of course, I can find through the filter, outcome is failed. And I can see the tests which failed on the server. And I can go there and I can see even the error message from NAV why it failed. And now from there, I can create bug in my work item system, assign this bug to somebody. Please look at that, correct this test, or correct this why it is failing. Yeah? And we can go another sprint in our Scrum, for example, to solve these kind of things.
Do you have to do that manually for all those 71, or you have also automated that? The bug creation.
The tests?
The bug creation.
The bug creation could be automated for the build. If the build failed, I can receive a bug for the build. But if I want to create a bug for specific error in the tests, I need to do it manually now. But of course, everything could be automatized because TFS have API, which you can use. And maybe you can use the API in a way like Arend Jan show you. And because the API is open, you can use it maybe directly from NAV if you want.
And quite often, if you have multiple fails in your test, quite often those failures, they are caused by one or two things. So quite often it's valuable that somebody actually looks at the system instead of creating 71 bugs and assigning it to all kind of different developers that all look on the same issue now. So quite often it has value to actually review your test results and create your bugs based on a manual review of it.
Yeah, exactly. That's all for my build demo, and now it's your turn.
Now it's my turn. So I do get to speak today.
Yeah.
First of all, I think we should
give... You have 20 minutes.
No.
First of all, I think we should give him a hand.
Thanks.
Well done.
So Kamil has worked with this for years, and or for a long time, I think, at least.
2-3 years, yeah.
2-3 years now. And it's Luke and I, we were already doing a lot of source control and talking about it a lot. And when we heard about all the stuff he was doing, we just had to have him in here. I think it kind of begins to end the entire circle of why we're doing things. So, what does the future look like for all of us in here? Microsoft is delivering product faster and faster. They expect us to do the same. If we want to do what Microsoft is hoping that we will do, we are going to be delivering faster and faster. We're going to have monthly releases or updates to our customers or to our multi-tenant environment cloud storage or cloud solution. But we also are expected to deliver really high quality, especially if we come into the the cloud solutions and the multi-tenant solutions. It becomes a really big issue if we don't test our software properly. And then there's of course the cost. The cost of our competitors are always going towards zero. Maybe not zero, but at least they push it down, right? We need to be competitive. If we want to, in the one-off solution market, which this still covers, this still deal. I have lots of customers that are just one-offs. We run them all through the system. But especially when we want to start pushing the cost down, and we want to be competitive in the multi-tenant market, cost becomes a real issue. And using source code management, using tools like build, using tools like testing tools, bringing it all together, automating it. That's the whole foundation of bringing the cost down. If we don't bring the cost down, we're going to be killed by everybody else. So we gotta bring the cost down. We cannot bring the cost down without automating. We cannot automate without doing proper source code management. So automation is the key here to do everything that we want to do to be competitive in this market. And that's why it's very key that you all think about this, that you all start working in this direction, right? Let's see. So what do you do today? So, question, do you secure and protect and manage your IP? How many do? Oh, expect you, there was one there, one out there, few places. So the rest of you basically have your IP stored in a customer's database. Is that the best place to have your IP stored? Or do you have a few databases around the company to float around? It's probably not the best place to have it stored. The IP that especially when you get into cloud solutions, the IP is one of the biggest assets of your company. And you have to treat it as a big asset. Not that it has to be locked down, but it has to be secure. The knowledge of how you grew your product and how you got to where you are today has huge value to your company. So it's not putting it behind bars, but Mr. Potato Head can live with being behind bars a little bit. At least we know where we have it. We know where we have the truth. The truth is what we have in our source code system. And it protects our data. So manage all your code. So I guess you just answered that before. If you don't manage your code, you don't know how you got to where you are today. You only see the current version. You never see how you got there, and you have no way of learning from how you got to where you are today. Source code management is huge for training your internal developers. I always call it source code management, and I don't like when Microsoft sometimes they use the source code control. I think control is such a negative word. It's source code management. You're managing your source code. You're helping your developers by doing code reviews, by letting them do code reviews with each other. You help them become better developers every day. When you can only see the latest version of the product you're working on, when you can only see what the state you are in today, and you have no clue how you got there, you have no clue what the latest change was, you don't have really a chance to learn from it. So, is it the right one I'm pushing here? Yeah. So that's important. The other thing that's important, that is, don't create too many systems. You have things like NAV is just one side of this, but you have PowerShell. That should be always source control managed, or source code managed. You have JavaScript. We have Mr. PowerShell and Mr. JavaScript sitting over there in the corner, not paying attention, but they should manage the source codes that they do, because it's part of the IP of the company. The other thing is, we talked about this one, constant developer improvement, code review, I mentioned that already. And then there's how are you testing your deliverables? Are you having the manual developer sitting there in somewhere in a corner, or tester? Do you have a dedicated tester that sits in the corner, tests all day, never does the same test twice because she can't remember, or there's something has gone wrong? You have to document your testing. You have to put it into the system, right? So we get the test done again and again. If something has gone wrong once, it's going to break again later. Might as well test for it. So I love my little dog there. So manual testing. The other thing that is manual testing, you have no way of having resources enough to do testing. Standard testing today is 15,000 tests. It takes about 4 hours, so it's a little time consuming. But how long would it take to manually test 15,000 things? And how many of those tests would be done wrong because you missed something or you didn't think of something? The only way to test that amount do that amount of tests on your software is to automate. And source code management, again, it is the foundation for all of this. So, source code management, if you don't manage your code, you don't improve it, you cannot automate it, and you don't learn from it. I think that's the last slide, right?
You have one more.
Yeah, I have one more. Yeah, so
Yours.
So we have over the years, well, first of all, I think this is an important message. You should all go home with this message. If there's one slide you should take a picture of, that's that one. Of our slides, at least. So over the years, I've had different books recommended to me to read about doing cleaner code, doing things like agile. There's no way. Microsoft wants us to be agile. They want us to be faster. They want us to be bringing things better to the market. And there's no way they can do it. We have to do it. It doesn't help Microsoft becomes agile if we are not, because we will never be able to deliver on what the vision is for what NAV should be doing. So 2 books I would recommend if any of you have time to do reading is these 2. Clean Code. Clean Code is a great read that I really have enjoyed a lot. It gives a lot. It's C# a lot, but don't worry about that. It's the philosophy that's presented in it is very, very powerful, and it's the same message that you will see Gary and Cloud Ready Software over there that they present on a regular basis. So that's for developers. If you are a product manager, then you should probably be trying to look at creating an agile environment for your developers. And the principle of product development flow is an absolutely. I'm only halfway through it right now, and I'm just. It's insane how well it presents the things we've been doing wrong for years and the things I've been doing wrong for years. So it's a great book, it's a great read, and I can recommend it very much. Enough about books. By the way, I don't get any royalties, so I'm just...
7, 5, oh,
And any questions? I was 3 seconds too early with
you timed it very well. Thank you very much.
questions. Fire away.
There's a question there. You get the cheese shirt already, but if it's crap, you have to give it back.
Oh, okay.
Is it working?
Working, okay, fine. I have a question regarding build. How effectively build management can be used to manage the customer, let's say customer delivery management, when you have at a regular basis to create the FOB files with description of changes and send them to customer, because we, for instance, we have some customers which have quite sophisticated their own IT stuff, and they are putting all the, let's say they are working with the production database by their own. They are not letting us to connect to it.
If I can answer,
sure.
I think if you have customer which is really maybe developing own customizations, or maybe just managing his update of databases, or have first the test database and live database, I think very good tool for it is the Git, because it's distributed. It means they can have the repository on their side, you can push your changes there, and they can update their database from it through the PowerShell or when they want. And if they are creating own modifications, they are just could commit them, push it into the repository into separate branch or something, and you can take this branch and merge it into your development environment. And these kind of things Git is allowing. It means it's just about setting up how to work with that, how you will use the branches, the repositories, and how you will manage all this around.
Yeah, and I think also one point to take here, that is that you should never ever be developing in a customer's database. You develop locally on with code isolation internally in your company, and you deliver finished builds to the customer, period.
That's your policy, but they apparently have a bit of different one, isn't it?
Yeah, but
that's his question about. He understands perfectly what we're saying, but he wants it a bit tweaked, a bit differently, I guess.
I guess so, yeah.
Which one? You have to run with the T-shirt.
I have a question about saving the text files. Do you think it's better to save the original text file or just save the delta files, so only my changes?
So it's better to save the text files, or?
Yeah, or only the delta of my changes I did.
Yeah. So we always save the entire text file. We use PowerShell to do the export. Of course, in the current version of NAV, you have to be careful, because there's different sides of there's different size. Because due to regional settings, you can export in with different date formats and different time formats that really messes up the system. However, all of you might have seen the initial presentation or the keynote by Microsoft. Did you all pay attention to the end of it? Did you see the text format they were presenting? It looked different. It was not completely the same we're used to. So maybe there's something going on there. I'm not completely sure, but I'm just guessing here.
But from a source code perspective, you will always have to save your full file. Yeah. It will create delta inside, otherwise you don't have any relation between the two. I mean, a delta file from cumulative update 1 is totally different probably than from cumulative update 2, so you don't build up a comparison, whatever. So inside your source code control system or code management system, it's always a file, and internally it creates a delta.
And I will add to that, from Git point of view, Git is internally saving only the deltas, his internal deltas of the files. And if you want NAV deltas, you can generate them as you wish, because you have all the history, and you can just make the delta from any point to any other point. You don't need to save the deltas. Okay. You can generate them.
So I really like what you've shown, and I see the positive effect we can have with source code management. But we're a customer, we are working 10 years with NAV. How to handle all the changes we already made to start with source code management?
Yeah.
Was it a question?
Yeah, it was question how to handle if you already have some history and you want to start with the version control. If I understand it correctly, very good point will be if you have where you started at least. If you have the basic version on which you started to build your current system, you can make first history for first commit this base version of NAV, and second will be your current state, and then you can continue step by step.
And if you have a system already, you might automate it to get the previous versions out and then one by one commit them.
If you have that, you can create the delta and apply it to new version, and you can upgrade through this system.
Good. We have a question over here.
Yep.
Luke, thank you very much for the idea in using TFS Online. You said the code IP is something very valuable, very precious. And what about putting the code in the cloud? How safe is that? Do you think maybe we could also have some legal compliance stuff about that?
That fully depends probably also on your country. Maybe there are different legal matters set there. On the other hand, from that bigger perspective, I didn't have to make that choice, but let's say generally it's like putting things into the cloud. This is the same issue. And if from a country's perspective, I don't know, Germany, for the Netherlands, I don't know about it, but I'm not fully in the know, but I know that between some countries in Europe and Germany for sure, they're more reluctant as a country to do that. So inform yourself what legal matters are, and especially with the customer, it could also be a matter of the branch, like banks have totally different requirements at that level than, let's say, chemical operation or whatever. Yeah. Was there a T-shirt?
There's a T-shirt over here. There's a question up here.
One?
Hey! It was the girl that was asking the question.
He have to.
Yeah.
Luke, I had a question for you.
Yep.
You mentioned in the beginning that when you rename a function, that is not seen as a change when exporting. Did you find a solution for that?
Only solution which I have now is just that the developer needs to push different button to really export all in this case. Because the Git will take what really was changed and will then show me only the difference in the all other objects which are somehow connected to this. Yeah. It means maybe it will take longer time to export all the objects to the text file, but I will be sure that everything is committed and I see all the changes.
I actually do that in at my place. We always do everything. I don't want two buttons because people they forget they did something. So I just push everything every time. It takes 30 seconds longer. It's not really a big deal.
Exporting everything and exporting one file?
No, it exports into multiple files. Because when you push it into to source code management, you export it as push it as multiple files, so you can see.
30 seconds between all objects and one object.
Yeah, it's nothing. When you do it with PowerShell.
I need your computer.
For example, my button is really exporting everything to one file, then splitting it to the repository. Yeah, I don't know if you are really by one exporting or even exporting all to one and split it there. Yeah, it's much quicker, of course.
Yeah, I don't remember what I'm doing.
But I'm
doing one of the two.
I'm still doing it manually.
There is question or oops. Yeah, oops.
Last question.
Last one. Yeah, sorry, offline. Yeah.
I wanted to know if Microsoft has any plans towards Team Foundation integration or Git, and how we should name our objects so that in future versions we don't lose all our history because we need to have a different file structure or rename those files?
We don't either. But for the naming file, if you use the merge utilities, by default it will use the first 3 letters of your object and then the ID of the file. Of course, you're free to choose now, but that's the default set. That's the internal, that's also the thing I'm using because I was used to that. There are different ones, but typically this is what Microsoft uses.
Yeah, so use the standard naming of the PowerShell tools. That's would be my recommendation, absolutely. And also what the future brings and what the right now where we have the separation between the database and the workspace, and we always have to synchronize the two, is annoying. I don't know. Maybe I read too much into the keynote. Did you see the keynote?
Yeah.
At the end, where they kind of showed the build engine or the compiler. It seemed like it was a different text format that I'm pretty sure about, but it seemed like they were editing straight in the text. So maybe that's the way they're going. I don't know. I can say that right now because they've not told me, but
fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. We have asked for it for a few years. Look and I have asked and talked to them for a few years about that, and it's one of the things we really wanted to see. We also wanted to see one fixed text format, so the text format doesn't depend on if it's exported with check code page or check the date settings or me in North America. So we don't have to set up our computers with the same regional settings in order to avoid conflicts down the road.
Time is up.
Yeah,
already.
Unfortunately.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.